Good morning. I had some member berries for breakfast. I want to talk about it. Do y'all remember when Facebook asked the question? It had to have been 10 years ago now. Do you have an inner voice, an inner monologue? Do you hear yourself speak in your head? I was pretty shocked by this question because I can't imagine myself, who does have an inner voice, to not have one. That's difficult for me to put myself in that position. I would assume the reciprocal is equally true. People who don't have an inner voice would probably find it very difficult to imagine having a voice in their head all the time, constantly arguing and ruminating, not necessarily speaking to yourself, but saying things in your head before you say them out loud. Probably something that we should do more often for those of us who can have an inner voice. I always thought this was really interesting. So without jumping to any conclusions, making any assumptions, I also started thinking of how many people can visualize things in their head. So if one muscle is verbal, we can speak to ourselves, have a conversation in the shower. What about visualization? That's different, because I do know people that can't really visualize things. They're very spatial. How many people can visualize things in their head? How many people can see things? We did this quite a bit in sports and hockey growing up, was you'd play a game 1,000 times in your head before you ever set foot on the ice. Every play, every cycle, every move, every shot, every goal, you'd visualize everything before you'd ever set foot on the ice. So when you did set foot on the ice, it felt like you'd been there before. So if we start making Venn diagrams of people who have an inner voice, who are visual versus people who are not, then I could think that gets us a little closer to the end of the diving board. We haven't quite made the jump yet into anything, and I don't know that if we can quite yet. What I'm interested in is the differences, right? So I Googled this question: how many people have an inner voice? And it looks like this is still a very popular question. There's news articles in 2022 and 2023 about this exact question. The results that I saw are about 75% of the people have an inner voice, 25% of the people do not. I'd be interested to see what the Venn diagram looks with people who have the ability to visualize things, and then compare all of this on the spectrum of mental capacity. Because that's something we typically don't talk about on a daily basis, but that's a very true thing that we deal with, because we're all very different. We're all the same, but there's a very broad spectrum of mental capacity and acuity that extends all the way down to the very, very high. So if you take all these three things together, you get some interesting information. And I don't know that I want to make any hypotheses yet, but if we were to take a step off the diving board and compare these things and these demographics, so say if that number is true, 25% of the people do not have an inner voice, let's assume that's similar for visualization, and let's assume there's a correlation there to the broad spectrum of intelligent quotient and capacities, acuities. Apply that to the voting public. About 50% of the population votes anyways, which is terrible, but it's only ever about 50% of the population votes. So in this last round, everybody talks about, 80 million votes. Well, times two, so if you've got two people, that's 160. There's 350-ish million people in America. Still only half the people are voting. Granted, you have children, you have, anyone under 18 that's not voting, plus you have, invalid, senior citizens, medical, any number of people. I mean, if you look at like employment rate, you're at the 60% of employment rate, which is a number that we should be paying attention to. Don't look at the unemployment rate number, because that's we're down to 4% now is what we're saying it is. Should be around 10% actual unemployment numbers. You should look at employment, not unemployment numbers. Employment, we're only about 60%. 60% of the people are working. 40% of the people, for whatever reason, are not working. So anyways, take these numbers, 25% of people across the voting public. If we were to take the jump off the diving board and make assumptions here, is it easier to convince someone that does not have an inner monologue to do something? My assumption is people who don't have the inner voice, the inner visualization, are really good at running things, are really good at operating things, are really good at assembly line work. I know I'm jumping out on a limb there, but let's say that's true. You have a broad demographic of the population who's highly convincible of anything. Take any group, take any very charismatic speaker, take a concert, take a church service. Some people are very highly convincible. Look at hypnosis. Some people are very highly convincible. You can suggest things and they will do them. Some people are not. If you ever go to a hypnotist show, they'll bring a handful of people up there and they'll ask them some questions, and real quick they'll excuse a couple of the people, because those people are going to sit there and go, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do anything you tell me to do. They're not going to do it. They're not going to be fun for a show, so they're going to ask them to leave the stage. And the people that are willing to do it, granted, you've got a couple of different things you've got going on here, but some people cannot be hypnotized, or it's very difficult to hypnotize them. Some people, it's very easy to hypnotize them. Some people just do stuff. Kind of correlates with some people are really good at running stuff, really good at just doing things. I'm not saying anything's negative or positive here. I'm just saying some people are inherently inclined to do stuff versus think about stuff or create things. It was interesting that this question was initially asked on Facebook. I remember this question was asked, and it was really widespread. Everybody talked about it, and then it wasn't really talked about again. But I think what happened is these companies, based on this information, plus all the other information in the world, like Google, who has access to all of the questions in the world. That's really interesting. It's not, they don't have all the answers in the world. They have all of the questions that are asked. Every single question. So you don't need to know the answer, but if you have all of the questions that humans are asking, now you have the ability to look in a direction. Now you can look for an answer. Otherwise, there's nothing to iterate on. There's nothing to try and come up with. You just randomly come up with things. But if you have the questions to ask, now you have true data. So I think this question, along with all the other psychological questions and all the personality quizzes we used to do on Facebook and behavioral questions, you know, you get 10 points for every time you smoked a cigarette in high school, or I'm a green because these are my personality traits, or here's my preferred astrology, and all of this information all got aggregated, and now they know how capable and how intelligent all of us are. And it's really easy to convince us of things when they know exactly how to convince us. It's not even really convincing, it's suggestion. Now, I'm not going too far. I'm jumping off the diving board into the middle of the pool. I'm not going to the deep end yet. I'm not saying there's conspiracy theories, it's all brain control and mind control. I'm saying it's a power of suggestion. I think a lot of us are not paying attention to how gullible we are, how easily manipulated we are, because every single day we are attached to these things. We are so addicted to this. I implore you to walk around and look at how many people, including yourself, spend all of their day with their necks cocked down on their pocket computer. Because it is everybody. Every single person has one of these, and everybody is paying attention to what is ever on it. Most importantly, so to stay on the shallow end, it's marketing. Marketing and advertisement has gotten better than the average intelligence of people. So I'm trying to say is we're more susceptible to marketing now. They're better at convincing us of stuff than we are at not paying attention to them. It's all marketing. How do you convince someone? We don't need new phones. We don't need new cars. We don't need new stuff. We don't need any of this. You need so little stuff. Even if you have resources and wealth, you need so little things to truly be happy. You need so much less than we have. But this consumerism engine is such a powerful engine. If you look at the amount of people on the planet that have benefited from this, it's wild, especially over the last 30, 40 years. Marketing is really, really powerful. And I think a lot of that is because they know exactly who we are and how gullible we are. And they have a stint directly into our brains where they can feed us information and they can get us to do things and buy these new clothes or buy this bag of Doritos because we came out with a new flavor. And that's where we're still in the shallow end, because who cares? Buy stuff. I'd like to see some ad-free spaces, but I don't think we're quite there yet. What's really interesting is when you take those tools and apply them to social issues, to legislative issues, judicial issues. When you try and pass laws, when you push people in one direction, look at what TikTok's doing. TikTok is fun, it's videos, it's great. You want to watch what other people are doing. You want to see what the human species is doing, the human condition, how people are coping, what people are doing, what are they cooking, how are they behaving, what do different people look like. All of these things are really interesting and addictive, and it's playing on our curiosity to pay attention to these things. But all they have to do is turn that dial just a little bit and point towards, say, carbon, or point towards medical things like COVID, or even point towards people who are running for office. All you've got to do is turn that dial just a little bit and adjust it so that this person looks a little bit better than this person. You don't even have to smear, you don't even have to go very far. All you have to do is adjust that dial a little bit and say, this person's a little bit better than this person. Here's I don't know, here's kind of a bad video. Here's also good videos, but here's one bad video for this person. Google got caught doing this with their suggested results on searches. You type in particular names and you look at the top 5 hits for that name. And that's testable, how much you can change someone's perspective on someone based on those search results. So if you put in a name, John Smith, and the first 5 results, if 4 of them are positive, John Smith is an accountant in Springfield, and he's done this, and he's running for city treasurer. Positive results, played high school. Okay. Same search result, John Smith, accountant from Springfield. Hey, here's a Facebook post where he posted a year ago about how much he doesn't like Muslims. Well, obviously we don't like John Smith then. All it takes is one little suggestion, one little bit of voodoo, just to put that little bug in your brain to change how you feel about something. And now you can't not feel that way. Now it takes a lot to be able to overcome any of that negativity about this person. It might not even be true. None of that could even be true. Oh, we've retracted the story. That's not our bad. We thought it was somebody else. John Smith's a really popular name. Not actually true. We'll remove that. search. Oh, well, that election's over. He didn't get city council. Now this other guy did. Now that's a particular path I'm going down, but that applies to everything. You look at all the smear campaigns, you look at advertisement. You Google jeans. What are the top 5 search results for jeans? If it's Gap and Old Navy and some of these cheaper brands, cool. Then we'd probably all go out and buy cheaper denim. But if you type in denim jeans and the top results are Buckle and Seven and whoever else is making fancy jeans these days, then we're more inclined to buy those jeans. And those companies get a boost in profits versus the other one. And then we spend more money for no other reason except that it was a suggestion. Because we don't have enough time away from our cell phones to pay attention enough to buy the things that we actually need and to do the things that we actually need to do. We're so busy, we're so occupied, we're not really paying attention to the things that we need to be doing. We're just listening to what we're told. Some of us maybe don't have the option to do otherwise, and some of us do. It's all kind of getting cluttered up. Thanks for listening.